Let's go to the phone and bring in Lindsay Jones from USA Today to talk about the draft coming up. Lindsay, thanks for joining us. You covered the Broncos for a number of years. You still live here. You now work for USA Today. You really cover the whole league now. But I want to ask you about the Broncos. This is the first year, in my estimation, that they have enough draft picks that John Elway might do something he hasn't done in the past, and that's trade up in the draft instead of back. How likely do you think it is that John either stays where he is or trades up this time around?
Yeah, it depends on what people are, what the price is to move up. And yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, this is not something that we've seen John Elway do in the future. If you guys remember a couple of years ago where they actually ended up trading all the way out of the first round because there was nobody there that they really wanted, and they felt they could get the guy they wanted in Derek Wolfe waiting till early in the second round. So, I think the possibility is there to move up. They have the ammunition with 10 picks. So it looks like, it sounds like that's something that they would be open to this year, depending on kind of the way the board falls. And if there's a guy that they really want to go up for, it's just a matter of how far you want to move up. I mean, do you want to move up from, 28 to 25 or 28 to 20? But they do have 10 draft picks to work with here, and I don't think they have 10 roster spots. So if there's a guy that they really want that's just a few picks up and they're not going to have to give away any grandchildren to go get it, I don't see why, that's not something that they would consider this year.
Well, I said, Lindsay, I don't know whether you were on hold at that point, but my alternative suggestion to Les was, and I asked you about it, is take your second round pick, which is at number 59, and trade up, because you don't have to give up with that value chart that both of you have looked at, I'm sure, several times. You could take some of those lower draft picks. You could take your second round and maybe throw a fourth round and a seventh round or something and get to 35 and basically have two, as you brought up about Derek Wolfe, you'd have two first-round quality kind of players that could play for you right away in a year where you're trying to, as you are every year, to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have options. And things that they could do, and they have enough spots. I mean, they have needs that they need to fill. So, yeah, I mean, they're one of those interesting teams, though, because they do have the ammunition and they do have needs, but they're also a really good team. So nobody really, I think, has a great handle on exactly where they're going to go. I mean, I think there's a lot of mock drafts over the last few weeks that have all been saying they're going to take a right tackle, like absolutely going to take a right tackle. But then all of a sudden, these last couple of days, it's like, oh, maybe a pass rusher, an outside linebacker. So, yeah, it'll be really, really interesting. And I don't have a great handle on exactly what they're going to do, mostly because so many things will happen before they get to being on the clock.
I'm going to tell you both again. I said 2 weeks ago, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to announce today they're going to take Jordan Phillips, the nose tackle, because he'll fit in right away in the rotation, and he'll be the nose tackle for the next 4 or 5 years.
Huge. He is huge.
He's mobile. He's mobile. He's exactly the kind of nose tackle that Wade Phillips likes, that can go from end to end, that he's a solid, smart guy who played at a big-time program in Oklahoma. So, Lindsay, that's what I'm telling you. In the second round, I'm going to ask you a question. I just saw a mock draft today that I trust that said the Broncos would take Grayson in the second round.
Wow.
Do you think they should take another quarterback in the second round?
Well, I think taking a second-round quarterback this year might not be as big of a shock as it was, I guess, 3 or 4 years ago.
It will be to Brock Osweiler. It would be to Brock
right.
Osweiler, Lindsay.
That's true. That's true. The thing about a couple of years ago, and that, when that draft happened, when they drafted Brock Osweiler, we didn't know what Peyton Manning was going to be yet. And he was actually encouraging them to draft a quarterback. I think, in retrospect, we look back and we say, oh, maybe that was a wasted draft pick because now this guy, Brock, is going to his fourth year and has basically played no meaningful minutes. But we didn't know that in April of 2012 that was necessarily going to be the case. But this year, they're facing a much different long-term situation here. I mean, Brock Osweiler is going to the last year of his contract, so there's questions about if he'll even be here next year. Their question is if Peyton Manning will want to be back here next year, if he'll be healthy enough, fit enough, any of that stuff. So I don't think it would be a terrible decision to take a quarterback. And John Elway, it was kind of revealing. It was probably the only revealing thing he said last week in his pre-draft press conference was that they evaluate guys as being starters in year 2. And we tend to look at it and we want to see immediate impact. We want to see guys that are going to play year one. But, to them, it might be worth taking a guy in the second round who might not play this year, but is going to play a lot in years 2, 3, 4, as opposed to, a couple years ago when that wasn't really the case with Brock Osweiler. And I like your Jordan Fuller suggestion. I think he's a guy who would benefit really well from Coach Collar, their new defensive line coach, because the question about him at Oklahoma was effort, and if he could give consistent effort all the time. He's a guy who flashes, but you don't see it all the time. But he's really, really athletic, has a really high ceiling. So I think that's a really interesting call there.
You cover all of the NFL, I know, and do a great job, Lindsay, but you concentrate a lot of your stories on the AFC West. Give us what your thoughts are going around the AFC West, if you would. I've seen that Jack Del Rio could end up with Williams, who a lot of people consider the best player of the draft, but he's not, at a skill position. The Chiefs, there's been a lot of talk about offensive line, trying to protect Alex Smith. They've lost offensive linemen. The Chargers want to protect Phillip Rivers, offensive line there. Would you agree with those evaluations, or tell me I'm stupid as you have in the past?
I don't know if that's the case. But, yeah, actually, I think those are pretty right on. I think everybody in the AFC West has a lot of needs, and those other teams especially. The Raiders can upgrade basically anywhere. The only position that would shock me if they dropped it in the first round is quarterback, obviously after getting Derek Carr last year. So, I think if Leonard Williams is there at 4, I think Jack Del Rio is sprinting around the Raiders facility, doing backflips. He's so excited because, I think he's, without question, the best defensive player available in this draft. And he might be, when we look back at this in a couple of years, he might be the best overall player in this year's draft. And he's a guy who really, I think the comparable player to him, and this is a really high bar, is a guy like J.J. Watt, though, because he can play inside, outside. He's very versatile. You're not going to take him off the field. You're going to get some pass rush out of him from the interior of the defensive line. So I think he would be a tremendous pick if he's there. They could also go for a wide receiver. They really need to get Derek Carr some help. And I think the Kansas City Chiefs also could look at wide receiver in the draft. Yes, they added Jeremy Maclin, but their wide receiver core was terrible last year. I think everybody knows that gruesome stat where they didn't have a wide receiver score a touchdown all last year. So they really need to upgrade for Alex Smith in that offense, whether it's a wide receiver or offensive line.
Les had said wide receiver earlier in the week, and I would just add about Leonard Williams that coming from USC, seems to be another great defensive player that came out of USC named Jack Del Rio.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Hey, this portion of the big stuff presented by the Celtic Tavern, the official sponsor of the Colorado Rapids. The Celtic provides a bus to every Colorado Rapids home game. You can tailgate 2 hours before kickoff with everybody at the Celtic, and it's just 2 blocks
It's not
west.
called a kickoff.
Oh, I'm just
Well,
reading
don't
what
read
it
it
says.
anymore.
Did I say kickoff?
You said it 2
Before
days
the-
in a row, and I
before
told you
the
there's no such thing as a
Tip-off.
kickoff in
Before
soccer.
the tip-off.
No,
Before the game starts.
Yeah, thank you.
Before the game
Gosh.
starts. It's just 2 blocks west of Coors Field on Blake. It's the Celtic. Lindsay, every day there is another rumor around the NFL draft concerning a player or a team, what a team's going to do. What's the latest rumor that you're hearing?
Oh, man. Right now, we're at the point in the draft where you just can't believe anything you hear. Pretty much unless it's a GM unless it's Jason Licht and Lovie Smith coming out and saying we are taking Jameis Winston. Beyond that, I don't think I would believe anything else you hear over these next couple of days. I think it was fine. I think the Dallas Cowboys are having their pre-draft press conference today, and they said that they didn't need a running back. Which, let's be honest, your offense ran through DeMarco Murray last year, and you lost him, and you signed Darren McFadden. Yes, you need a running back. So, everybody is playing all these smoke screens about what they need and who they want to draft. And, I think the really interesting debate that's going on today, I heard you guys talking about it a little bit earlier, is what's going to happen with Shane Ray and how far he's going to fall after his marijuana possession citation yesterday. He's a guy who might have top 10 talent, but you combine now a red flag character issue-wise along with the turf toe, and maybe he slips all the way down to late in the first round or maybe out of the first round. I think it would be crazy for him to fall all the way out of the first round. I mean, I think all you had to do is watch just a little bit of his college tape, and you see that this is a very rare, elite kind of prospect that I would hope something like a little bit of weed isn't going to make him fall out of the first round of the draft.
Let's start one right here. I've got one for both of you.
Sure.
How about you're Chip Kelly, and you say to the Tennessee Titans, I'm going to do a Ricky Williams, Herschel Walker kind of deal with you. I'm going to give you Sam Bradford and 5 draft picks for the second overall pick. Would you take that, the two of you?
In a New York second. Lindsay?
Well, I'm going to be selfish here for a second because I am flying to Philadelphia tomorrow to cover the Eagles during the draft. So, yes, take it. Let's do it.
Well, I started. I mean, my sources who are familiar with the thinking of Chip Kelly.
Yeah, right.
Because that's a way to couch that you're sitting on the couch.
That's a scary journey, going into the mind of Chip Kelly.
Well, people probably always ask you, who do you root for and what do you root for? Do you say, for me, I would say I root for the story. What's the best story? And I'm going to be in Philadelphia on Thursday, and the best story is Chip Kelly going crazy and trading all of his draft picks to get Marcus Mariota. So.
Well, ask him if he was willing to do that, and you could say, I have talked to a source who's familiar with your way of thinking. And you got Mark Sanchez, you've got Tim Tebow there, you got that other guy named Knife or Fife or whatever his name is, and you'd get Mariota, who is your dream quarterback, and you give up a bunch of inside linebackers and guys with ACLs and stuff.
I'm
like
there.
That.
Can we throw Tebow in the trade somehow?
Yeah.
Maybe we could. I do have one other question, and then I will defer to Les with his more important questions. But Sports Illustrated, Lindsay, has a jinx. Every time they put somebody on the cover, that person supposedly has a bad week after that. I think there's a Denver Post cover issue that every time someone covers the Broncos beat, they go on to a much brighter career somewhere else. Do you would you say that jinx is true, since now there have been 4 of you that have left in the last 2.5, 3 years?
Yeah, I can't wait to see where Troy Rank's going to land here in a little bit.
Don't say that.
If that's the case. Well, I guess I will say that it's covering the Broncos for the Denver Post is a great I don't necessarily say launching pad. It's just great training grounds. I mean, you get to cover so many tremendous stories. You have a really visible profile because of how visible the Broncos are. I mean, whether it was, the 4.5 years that I was covering the Broncos there, we had the craziness with Jay Cutler and Josh McDaniels. We had Tim Tebow for a couple of years. We had Peyton Manning coming. So you got to do a lot of stuff. And I was really fortunate to spend 4.5 years working alongside Mike Cliff, who's one of the best in the business. I mean, he's been such a tremendous mentor and friend that, I think it's only natural that when you have work with really good people and you've got really good editors and people have good ideas and, that those opportunities are going to come. So, I hope, I wish the best for Mike. He's one of my favorite people, and I'm glad we'll still see him here in Denver. But yeah, big shoes for Troy Ranks to fill and whoever is coming in next.
Yeah. So
Lindsay,
anyway, we've established there is a Denver Post jinx.
Yeah.
Lindsay, how can people read you besides going to the hard copy of USA Today?
Yeah, well, so when you're staying at Holiday Inn Express, pick me up outside your door.
Wait a second. You sure you want to put it that way?
No, just the paper version.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, obviously all of our stuff is online at usatoday.com, Twitter @ Lindsay H. Jones. That's where kind of all our stuff is, and obviously we're doing videos and also writing a lot of stories. I'm still over here at Dove Valley. I'm going to pop downstairs and write a little bit about Peyton Manning right now, actually.
All right, we still want to get you in studio here, so sometime.
We'll do that soon.
Sometime in the next few weeks, maybe. Hey, enjoy covering the NFL draft this weekend, and we'll see you out at Dove Valley soon.
You'll be in Philadelphia for the draft, right?
I will, Thursday and Friday, and I'll probably be back here at Dove Valley on Saturday.
All right, Lindsay. Thanks a lot. We'll see you soon.
And thanks
guys.
coming on with us.
All right. This portion of the big stuff brought to you by Grand Prix Motorsports, your source for the original motorcycle, Indian motorcycles. Check out the newest line of Indian motorcycles at Grand Prix Motorsports on County Line and Santa Fe.